Liminal in English it's exactly the same word in Spanish, which was one of the reasons we chose it. It's a very special description. It's an adjective that is meant to describe a space that is neither the space you are coming from nor the space you are going to. So it's the space in between. So if you think about the space in between spaces, the reason this I think works for Leandro Erlich's art is that all of these spaces are social spaces. It's not just for you alone, like many works of art, like a painting, for example. It's a space that you're going to share with your friends, your family, and also with strangers, people who have come to the exhibition with you or at the same time as you, and you find yourself in these spaces with these people. And suddenly, you're interacting visually with these people in a way that you did not expect to. And really, you find that you're not really in the space that you thought you were. And I think that's the very interesting sort of final stage of understanding the experience of a Leandro Erlich work, is that really you thought you were entering a space that looks very familiar. And everything is exactly as it's supposed to be, every detail. But it's really scenography. It's really a place where you, the visitor, becomes an actor. So this sort of shock or surprise that the work creates in viewers is the shock of realizing that you never arrived at the place you thought you were going to. You're in this place in between. And in a liminal space, you can say that the laws are suspended. The regular laws of reality no longer apply. Your experience is more of an interactive experience. When you are in the exhibition, we want you to be very aware of how what you see now in one space affects the way you respond to the next space, and how that makes you respond to the next space differently. So, for example, here in the Salon de Belleza, by the time the spectator reaches this room, you will have already passed through 4 separate installations that will each have caused you to question in a very dramatic way the space that you're in. One of them is a classroom, and the other is a small garden, like a rooftop garden. And so by the time you get here to this third sort of large installation, you're already wondering what tools you're going to need, how you're going to need to adapt to the space, because you know there's a surprise. You know there's something coming that you don't expect, and you don't quite know what it is until you sit inside the room and suddenly see people's image kind of transferring magically from one side of the space to the other. And it's not magic. I use that word. It's magic in the sense of a magician pulling a rabbit out of a hat, or a dove from under a handkerchief. It's a trick. It's an illusion. He's using techniques and materials that really are not very complicated. And he's setting up a scenography, which is very much, it's very easy to understand. It's very familiar. And so by the end of the narrative, I think when you get outside, you start to understand that maybe the world outside that you're returning to, that you're going to step back into after you've been in this liminal space for a long time, that world is going to seem a little bit different. It's going to seem a little strange. And I think that happens when you leave a certain kind of a movie. That's a great movie experience. Or you leave a museum. That's a great art experience. You step in the world and suddenly it doesn't seem the same as when you left it the last time. And so I think there's going to be a very large component of that, which is what the viewer will take away. But if you come away from the exhibition and all you got out of it was this perceptual thrill, this perceptual shock of being in a liminal space, that's fine. That's perfectly adequate. And if you come in a philosophical frame of mind and you're thinking, well, wait a minute, what are the existential questions that this work proposes? That's also exactly appropriate for the work that he's doing. And so I feel that this is a very unusual case in contemporary art, where it's art that's made for everybody, as much for the specialists in art as it is for the general public.